Shalom. Giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rachahakwarash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. And as always, we give peace and salutations unto the elect. And I wanted to do a response to this dream, all right, which you brothers and sisters who are watching, you've probably seen a few responses to this. I saw a few apostles and certain elders and other brothers respond to this. As you can see, this is off of Elder Manata Zakba's page, GMS South Carolina 08. All right, make sure you subscribe and be edified. All right, as you can see, this is a response to End Time Dream of YN, Mass Death and Rejected Women. Okay, and of course, you know, this brings up the scripture in Isaiah 4:1, where it talks about 7 women taking hold to 1 man. And what I wanted to do is go into some history on why that is written, which we know that's a future prophecy. But what was going on during the time that Jeremiah wrote this? What was going on with the southern kingdom, which is Judah, Benjamin, Levi, and why specifically in Isaiah are women targeted in the topic of judgment along with the leaders? Because as you can see here, we know the leaders of Judah, all right, had gotten wicked, all right, and underwent a brutal judgment via the Neo-Babylonian Empire. But also women are called out in the grand scheme of things, and it's the same thing now. Okay, and I want to listen to a little bit of this dream, or we'll get the whole dream, but I wanted to get into some history, and also wanted to get into Isaiah the 4th chapter as well, where it talks about 7 women taking hold to 1 man, which is the topic that surrounds much, you know, back and forth. And it says exactly what it means, and it means exactly what it says. In those times, not only are they here already, in a sense, all right, but they're coming in an even more drastic way as this system collapses, as many of these men, all right, are put to death. All right, nature will take its course. Okay, and Isaiah the 4th chapter describes a scenario where, all right, the Babylonian women, all right, of Israel who were in the Babylonian captivity, which they're in the Babylonian captivity, all right, today, all right, here they were in a Neo-Babylonian captivity, will drop the pride, all right, and have to deal and seek men of the Lord, all right, to be delivered. Now, let's get this dream and hear what this individual says.
There were young men. There were young men that were in old army uniforms, old BUs, like 90s uniforms, not necessarily World War I or II, but they were in like 90s army attire. And they were all younger than me. All these men were younger than me. None of them were millennials. They were all Gen Z men. And they were running into a battlefield. Now, let me describe this battlefield to you. It was very big. It was very wide. And it was dark outside. So it was nighttime. So the grass was dark green, but had that very much black hue over it. And the men.
And the scriptures tell you that the day of the Lord, okay, is darkness. Okay. Not light. So woe unto you who desire the day of the Lord. Okay. This is the book of Amos 5:18. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. Okay. There's also one, and I believe in the book of Zephaniah. Okay. Which he prophesied, you know, hundreds of years before the Babylonians came. You know, he prophesied the judgment that will come upon Judah. Zephaniah 1:14, the great day of Yahweh is near. It is near, and it hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord. which is the prophets. The mighty man shall cry bitterly. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble, a day of distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. Okay. In verse 17, he says, I will bring distress upon men, and they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord. And their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh shall be as dung. Neither shall their silver nor their gold be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath. The whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even a speedy riddance of all of them that dwell in the land. And this is Zephaniah prophesying, all right, what Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel and other prophets witnessed. Okay. And, as we know, the scriptures say that which is then is now, because we can tie this to now. All right. Let's get Ecclesiastes, the first chapter. Ecclesiastes 1:9. The thing which hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. All right. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, it is new? It has already been of old time that was before us. Okay. So history merely repeats itself. All right. And that which is then is now. And the day of the Lord is darkness, not light.
Who were running into the battlefield and being shot down. I mean, shot in the head, shot in the chest, shot down. It was every last one of them. They were all running out with weapons. They were running out with old guns that the military no longer uses in combat. M16s are not used in the military combat anymore. And they were running out there with them, and they were not using them properly. They were flailing above their head, going, and then running out there and dying. They were just getting slaughtered. And the thing is, nobody was actually shooting at them. They were running to a tree line, a dark tree line. And as they would run, bullets would fly out from over there. They were just flying. And you couldn't see who was shooting. There was no person over there actually shooting. They were running to a dark tree line and just being shot. They wouldn't even make it to the tree line before they would be shot. This field that they were in had to be about the size of maybe a football and a half, long. A football field and a half long. And it was being covered in blood. The men were being picked up by these old-looking, I want to say World War I, the term World War I keep popping in my head, but they look like World War I ambulances. And the medics kept trying to come out there and pick up the bodies and pick up the wounded. And there were so many young men dying and being shot and wounded till when wounded men were collected by the medics, they would eventually die, because what was happening is there were so many dead men that 7 of them would be stuffed into the back of these ambulances at a time. They would be stuffed in, and the wounded would die because they were among the dead. It was so much dying going on. It was horrific to see. And
there's prophecies that go into the mass amounts of death that are coming. Okay. Not only to our people, but around the world. Okay. Here in Babylon. All right. It's going to be a lot of death. Okay, the scriptures talks about how blood would reach to the horse's bridle, symbolizing the amount of blood. As a matter of fact, we can get that. Horse's bridle. Okay. Horses. Let's see. Horses. I know it's in the book of Revelation. Let's maybe it's, I haven't read that in a minute. Let's just do it like this. Blood reaching to horses bridle. Revelation 14:20. All right, this is the book of Revelation 14:20. All right. And the winepress was trodden without the city. All right. The elect ultimately will be delivered from this, the holy city. And blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horse's bridle, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. Let's read this in the NLT. Just symbolizing the amount of death, man. Okay. And the grapes were trampled in the winepress outside the city, and the blood flowed from the winepress in a stream of about 180 miles long, and as high as a horse's bridle. All right, with the judgment that Yahweh Shai is coming to bring back. Revelation 14:14. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And with a sickle, you either reap or you destroy. You cut down, and you can reap as well. Okay, let's go back here.
The scene ended up turning red. These young men were going out there and dying, and not even having a chance. Like, they wouldn't duck. They had no guidance. They had no formation. They had no understanding. They literally did not know how to fight in this battle, and they were just running out there charging and being slaughtered.
Right, because they didn't have the wisdom of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Okay, and they're going to be without the covering of the Lord. The Lord said He was going to choose the delusions of the 2/3 of our people, those who mocked His truth. You know, when the time of judgment came, all right, He's going to leave them to their own devices. They're going to eat of their own way, and it's going to lead to a lot of judgment. A lot of them being confounded. Okay, because they're not under the covering of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai.
And so the ambulances weren't even being touched. That's the thing. The ambulances were clean, but they were very old. No rust or anything, but they were very old style, like literally World War I old. I don't know why I keep saying World War I. But the medics themselves were never being shot. They were helping, but they weren't being, they were out there, but they weren't being shot. So now you got, that was the first dream. And
so that was his first dream. And the second one is really what this lesson is going to be on. But let's go.
By the end of the dream, the field was covered in blood that would not dry up. It was blood it would remain red. It was so much blood, it covered the dark hue that came from the night sky. It was just so much. And it was horrible. This dream ended. Then months later, I had another dream. And for those that understand what I'm saying, if you understand what I'm saying, this dream was connected to the first one, even though they were months apart. And I'll tell you how I know it. You'll hear it when I talk about it. In the second dream, it was about Generation Z women. There were no millennial women in this. It was Generation Z women and millennial men. They were the only ones I saw in this. So the Generation Z women were running around holding babies. They were holding their children, and they were running around looking for men. They were asking men to marry them. They were telling men, please. They were telling the millennial men, please marry me. Please marry me. If you don't marry me, I won't survive. I won't be protected. No one will care. Help me. And a lot of the men were turning them down. The men were telling them, I'm not raising you in those babies. I'm not raising you in that baby. And what it was, like, it came to me.
The men were picky. All right. And it's going to be like that.
Those women were actually the mothers to the children that were the children of the men that had died in the first dream. They were all of the children were born out of wedlock. Every last one of them were born out of wedlock. And the women were running around trying to find a man that would marry them. They were even offering themselves in ways that they probably normally wouldn't do. I could hear so many different voices. I could hear so many different arguments, so many different disagreements, and so many different denials. And the women were running to the men, and they were telling the men, marry me, I don't care what I have to do. And
marry me, I don't care what I have to do, because a lot of their husbands died in war. Let's get the book of 2nd Esdras, the 16th chapter. And I'll jump to the, let's see here. Whew, I mean, the whole thing is good. I started 22. For many of them that shall dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. Okay. So you go to die, you find some food, you steal, the sword gonna get your ass. And the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them. For the earth shall be wasted, the city shall be cast down. There shall be no man left to till the earth and to sow it. The trees shall give fruit, and who shall gather them? The grapes shall ripen, and who shall tread them? For all the places shall be desolate of men. A lot of men are going to die. Okay. And in a catastrophic situation like this, all right, what will women do? They will seek help. All right. They will seek covering. They will seek males. All right. All of what they've learned in the West and what the serpent taught them was going to go out of the door, and nature is going to take its course. Okay. So that one man, and this ain't, this whole thing of Isaiah 4:1 ain't, brothers, sitting around lusting for women. It's the will of the Lord. And this is how a lot of women are going to be delivered. If anything, brothers are focusing on themselves. Brothers ain't going around looking for a bunch of women. You got certain brothers, who still in that spirit, because men are men, but a lot of us are really just focusing on ourselves, man. We deal with what we got, right? Brothers don't get together and just talk about how much women we gonna have in the kingdom. We're worried about getting this earth back in absolute order. See, we're tired of this madness. We're tired of this fashion. We're tired of seeing our women the way that they are. We're tired of seeing our nation the way that it is. So when we bringing this out, we're just bringing out the reality of prophecy. And those of you who got a problem with it, like you have certain women talk about, well, that's talking about your mama and your auntie. No. All right, let's keep reading. Okay, we'll get to that Isaiah 4:1 because we want to get some history to tie it to the now. So that one man, 2 Esdras 16:27, so that one man shall desire to see another and to hear his voice. For of a city there shall be 10 left, and 2 of the field which shall hide themselves in the thick groves and in the clefts of the rock. As in an orchard of olives, upon every tree there are left 3 or 4 olives. Okay. Or as when a vineyard is gathered, there are left some clusters of them that diligently seek through the vineyard. Even so in those days there shall be 3 or 4 left by them that search their houses with the sword. Okay. And the earth shall be laid waste, and the fields thereof shall wax old, and her ways and all her paths shall grow full of thorns, because no man shall travel there through. The virgin shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. In the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed. There's some of them going to be sent to war, and it's going to be war in the streets, right? In the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. Okay? Hear now these things and understand them, ye servants of the Lord. All right? Really understand what you're getting yourself into by coming into this truth, man. All right? This is deadly serious. So as you can see here, it says the virgin shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. So what will this lead women to do? All right, let's keep listening to the dream.
Some of the women even said, I'll be your 7th wife. I'll be your 7th wife.
Some of the women said, I will be your 7th wife.
Here, I don't care if I'm the 7th one. And so the men were listening, and some of the men would choose as many women as they could. Some of the men chose none of them. A lot of them chose none of those women. And what they were saying was, I can't help you. I can't afford you. I don't want that baby. I don't want to raise another man's baby. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Why didn't you want me when I wanted you? What's going on now? No, I don't need that.
A lot of women are going to lose out in that day. A lot of these proud women sitting on a high horse, all right, talking all kind of crap. In that day that you will be rejected. Okay? Just know that.
But one of the statements stuck out to me. One statement said, I don't want to raise that child because I don't know anything about his father. If you know anything about the connection between young boys and their fathers, you kind of understand how severe this is. The men, the millennial men were telling the women, I don't want what their father has to come into my household. And so they would deny the women. And some of the men even told the women, I'll take you, but you have to leave the baby. And a few of the women chose to leave the child just so they can be wives. There was women running around saying, God, please give me a husband. I don't want to live with my reproach. I don't want to live with my reproach. I don't want to live like this anymore. And scripture talks about this. Scripture.
And millennial men, you know, I'm a millennial man, you know, you know, and, you know, we've seen a lot, you know, and in that time, you know, the men are going to be dealing with prudence. You know, the men of the Lord ain't just going to take in any woman. But this will be how many women are delivered. Now, is every woman's fate going to be, you know, this? Because you're going to have, you got certain older women who believe. All right. You know, the Lord is going to deliver who's ever of the elect. But the Isaiah 4:1 concept is going to be the fate of the majority of women. You're going to be delivered, all right, through being linked with a man, and you're going to throw away this mindset, all right, of control that you've been given by the serpent. And prophecy will make sure of it. And that's what we're going to get in Isaiah 4:1. Because why will women flip to say it doesn't, you don't have to buy me nothing, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that? What spirit were they in before that, and what happened? All right, to get them to that point. That's what we're going to get into, and we're going to get into some history. History you should know.
Talks about women who will want men and will be fine with basically being their wives up until the seventh wife. All of this.
All of this, you got to give me this, you got to give me that. I need this attention. You got to take me here. You got to do. All that's going to be thrown out the door. It's only going to be rooted and predicated upon being called by that man's name. Okay. What will happen to get women, especially Western women, which are the worst women, all right, in that spirit?
It's in there. So that was the second dream. Those women were like, I had one run up to me and she said, she was like, will you marry me? And I said, no. And she was like, why? Why won't you marry me? And I told her, I said, I can't afford you, remember? Like, it just came out. I wasn't even really think about it. I was like, I can't afford you, remember? And she broke down. She started crying. She started begging. She said, please, I need a protector. I need a protector. I need somebody who can help me. And they were frantic. It was so many women. These were all.
And you got to understand, for every one man, there's like 7 to 8 women. And the Lord did it like that on purpose. There's always going to be more women than there are men. There are going to be more women delivered than men. Okay, which means the men that are delivered are going to be that much more precious in the sight of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Okay, as a matter of fact, let's get Isaiah 32. I believe that's where it's at. Isaiah 32:2. And a man, what man? The man of the Lord. Okay, but even, you know, regular men to a degree, when shit starts to go down, you know, they're going to, you know, be sort of like, you know, but the Lord, a lot of them go die. See? And the lie the serpent told you is going to find itself out to be a lie, that you don't need a man. And a man shall be as an hiding place from the wind, and a cover from the tempest, as a river of water in a dry place. You find a river of water in a dry place. You in a desert, you know, fit to pass out and die. And you come up on a river of pure water. You are like, yes. Because you can survive some time without food, but without water, after a while, you through. So you find a river of water in a dry place. You are like, yes. You find a hiding place from a sandstorm, a wall you can hide behind. a covert from the tempest, something you can find refuge in when things are, that's how the men of the Lord are going to be. And this is the Lord's doing. As rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. You find some shade, you know what I'm saying, in a weary land. That's how a man is going to be. I believe also in Isaiah 13, it talks about men being as gold. Boom. Isaiah 13:11. And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy and the proud to cease. And our men and women are proud, boy. Woo. But men to a degree can defend themselves. What are you women going to do? And will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. And I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. See that? Men are going to be more precious than gold in that day. All right. Now, let's go back here and listen to a little bit more. Let's rewind it a little bit.
Up to me, and she said, she was like, "Will you marry me?" And I said, "No." And she was like, "Why? Why won't you marry me?" And I told her, I said, I can't afford you, remember? Like, it just came out. I wasn't even really thinking about it. I was like, I can't afford you, remember?
Like, you broke, nigga. You a brokey. You dusty. I ain't going 50-50 with you, nigga. You go out on a date. She pick up that big wide ass menu and order, the 2 steaks. I want to take one home. Lobster, 3 glasses of wine. And you like, wait, whoa. You broke, nigga. You can't get on social media calling you broke and this. I don't want no man, under 6 feet or under 5'9", yada, yada, yada. Man got to do this. A man got to. And that day, you just going to appreciate a man for being a man. And in this dream, basically, he probably ran across a woman who denied him before, and we used to mock him and talk shit about him as a dusty and a lame and a brokey. And he like, no, I can't afford you. Remember?
And she broke down. She started crying. She started begging. She said, "Please, I need a protector. I need a protector. I need somebody who can help me." And they were frantic. It was so many women. These were all for lack of a better term, these were all the baby mothers of the men that had died in the first dream. And it was pitiful. It was
right. Generation Z, these YNs going around and having babies. A lot of these women are going to be left out. Right. And a lot of them going to be rejected. Okay. And end up, as the scriptures talks about, eating their own children. This is all prophecy, man.
Very sad. And that was the second dream. I didn't understand that one fully when it first happened. But what I did feel like was that a big war was coming.
Now, we know in the book of Isaiah 4:1, it says, "In that day," which is a future prophecy, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, "We will eat our own bread. We will wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by the name of the Lord to take away our reproach." Okay. In that day, the branch of the Lord shall be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the earth shall be excellent. So this is a future prophecy. So there's going to come a day where 7 women, which 7 just means completion, are going to take hold of one man, showing you nature is going to take its course. And this is a scripture that women roll their eyes at, try to get around. You got, brothers' wives putting hell on them. When they hear him bringing out on the highways, he come home and you got an attitude. Okay, well, a lot of you are going to be left to dry, man. If you think you're going to stop the will of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai from taking place, because this is his determination on how the remnant is going to be gathered. Now, before we get into this, what happened in Isaiah, the 3rd chapter? Okay. It says God will remove the leaders. What was going on? All right. With the kingdom of Judah in Isaiah, the 3rd chapter, it says, "For behold, the Lord of hosts doth take away from Jerusalem and from Judah the stay and the staff and the whole stay of bread and the whole stay of water." Let's read this in the NLT. Okay. "The Lord of heaven's armies will take away from Jerusalem." He's prophesying against Jerusalem because the northern kingdom had already went off. and fell into idolatry. None of the kings of the northern kingdom did right. Jehu was one who did okay, but pretty much he fell off in the end. Of the 19 kings that sat on the throne of David, only about 6 of them did right. One did good in his, young age, but eventually went off. Josiah was the last king who sat on the throne of David who did right. Okay? And I believe, what king was ruling at this time? Let's ask it here, because I asked ChatGPT some things. What king was ruling during Isaiah, maybe the 3? What king of Judah? Good to know these things, right? Uzziah. There you go. Uzziah. All right. Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah. All right. And Isaiah was speaking against the kings because they were doing wickedness. Okay. And let me do this. I think I have it saved. Let's go here. Okay, this is still up. There we go. So I have this chart here. All right, now these are the kings. Come on now. These are the kings of Judah on the right, and the kings of Israel on the left, the northern kingdom. And as you can see, all of the kings of Israel did evil. So Jeremiah is prophesying to Israel around the time of Uzziah, who actually he did right. Okay, but they had started to fall off. Okay, remember Amaziah, he did wickedness. Okay, so this Isaiah 3 was written during the time of Uzziah or Azariah, which he did good. Okay. And you could look up that history, but I just wanted to show you that. Now, when you read it, pretty much if you read like the first chapter, it tells you, yep, the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, the kings of Judah. So there you go. All right. And many of our people fell away. So the Lord, when you read it in the NLT, it says, the Lord of heaven's armies will take away from Jerusalem and Judah everything they depend on, every bit of bread and every drop of water. See? Ezekiel prophesied the same thing. Jeremiah prophesied the same thing. Okay, the captain of 50 and the honorable man, the counselor and the cunning artificer, the eloquent orator, and I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them, and the people shall be oppressed. So ultimately the Lord just put a curse on Jake. They were ruined. Okay, now as you read this chapter, we know the leaders were going to get judged. The men were going to get judged. Okay. But then when you go to verse 16, it says, moreover, Yahweh said, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with stretch forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making and tinkling with their feet. Okay, so they were very proud, man. Okay, therefore will the Lord smite with the scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. Okay, and this is a curse that fell on the southern kingdom. All right, a lot of the southern kingdom women, they say, well, how did the northern kingdom women still got their hair if in our hair is messed up? Well, this curse fell on Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and we'll prove that this is speaking of only the southern kingdom. See, so the Lord cursed you. All right. And the Lord will discover their secret parts. And that day will the Lord take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments. So they were walking around prideful, right? But with bravery, ornaments, and, all into the outward appearance. The scriptures say a woman that liveth in pleasure, all right? Let's get that. Forget where it's at. I know it's in Timothy. First Timothy 5 and 6. And again, the book of Timothy, Timothy was being prepared to go rule over the church of Ephesus, which was, the whole woman worship and, Queen of Heaven spirit was heavy out there. Okay. So this is why you see a strict warning to women in this book, First Timothy 5 and 6, where it says, suffer not a woman to teach and a woman to usurp authority over the man. That was a issue, all right, in that region, a bigger issue than other places. Well, here it is. We're here in America, and we see the same thing. But she that liveth in pleasure, First Timothy 5 and 6, is dead while she liveth. See that? But women who are all about pleasure and not about serving and not about their role and order given to them by the Most High, to be a helpmeet and a nourisher to the children and keep the household. Women look at that as slavery, and they want pleasure. This is what was going on in Isaiah, the 3rd chapter. Okay, and I'm gonna get into this book to give you more insight of what was going on. So the Lord said he was going to take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, those ankle bracelets and their calls and their round tires like the moon, those Altimas, those Maximas, those Honda Accords, right? The chains and the bracelets and the mufflers. Okay. The bonnets and the ornament on the legs, and the headbands and the tablets and the earrings, because they were all into their fashion. And we're going to show you that the rings and the nose jewels, the changeable suits of apparel, and the mantles and the wimples and the crisping pins, the glasses and the fine linen and the hoods and the veils. And it shall come to pass that instead of a sweet smell, there shall be stink, because they were going to go into captivity. They were going to get rolled on, all right, by the Babylonians, man. They were getting ravished. Let's get that in the book of Lamentations. Lamentations, the 5th chapter. Lamentations 5 and 11. All right, let's read 10. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. When a dark-skinned people, all right, go into a famine, their skin gets darker. Showing you these were the dark-skinned people. All right. This is the kingdom of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi primarily, right? And they ravished the women in Zion and the maids in the cities of Judah. Princes are hanged up by their hand. The faces of the elders were not honored. They took the young men to grind, and the women fell under the wood. You put your ass in captivity, man. The elders have ceased from the gate, and the young men from their music. And this is going to happen again when, all right, the Babylon the Great rose. This happened at the time of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, what we're reading. But at the time that Babylon the Great sends these troops, these robots, their AI and everything, it's going to be even worse. And if you're not covered under the covering of the Lord, all right, you're going to be through. Now, a man could, to a degree, protect himself, although we know men going to be through. But what are women going to do? Again, they got ravished. See that? Isaiah 13. This is the reality of prophecy. We're not here to play with you people, man. Isaiah 13 and 16. 15. Everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined into them shall fall by the sword. Okay? Mocking the Israelites, right? Their children shall also be dashed to pieces before their eyes, and their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. You had Captain Tazariak say, well, grape ain't nowhere in the Bible. What does this mean? Come on, man. Let's just be real. Okay? Now, going back to Isaiah, the 3rd chapter. Okay? It says, and it shall come to pass, verse 24, that instead of a sweet smell, there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well set hair, baldness, and instead of a stomacher and stomacher, a grinding of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty. Okay, it's gonna be worse than when COVID set in and you couldn't get to the hairdresser and you started to see y'all real hair. It's gonna be worse. Thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty men of war. And her gates shall lament and mourn, and she being desolate shall sit on the ground. So our women underwent an absolute judgment. Now let's get into this book, and then we'll come back, all right, with more scriptures, and then we'll end it off. As you can see, this book is called Our Living Bible. Old Testament text by Michael Aviona. New Testament text by Emil G. Kraling. All right. I'll go into some good history. I've had this book for some time. And as you see, it says the sins of Jerusalem, explaining what was going on. As you can see, Isaiah, the 3rd chapter is quoted there, all right, which we just read. So to give you an understanding of what was going on in Isaiah, the 3rd chapter, which led to Isaiah, the 4th chapter being written and prophesied, because we know that which is then is now. Okay, Isaiah's prophetic indignation was first aroused by the glaring religious, moral, and social evils that he saw in his own city. And as you can see, it says the sins of Jerusalem. Okay. The adultery, the oppression of the poor, the arrogance and sensuality of the rich and aristocratic, the empty formalism of the temple ritual, which was regarded as sufficient expiation of all moral failings. This blatant corruption was all the more painful for him to behold because of the contrasting idea of Jerusalem as God's holy city, which lived in his heart. Now I'm going to jump down here. As you can see, I have certain parts highlighted, but I'll just read from here to here. It says, one of the striking signs of this social dissolution was the decline in the traditional standards of austerity, especially in the case of women. So things got light on women, and they were able to gather abroad, and as the scriptures say, when you allow, drunken women to, gather abroad, there's no restrictions, there's no order, things can get nasty. Okay. And this is what we see today. This is why in the book of Timothy, as Paul was sending Timothy to be a head over the church of Ephesus, he warned him to not let those women speak and be out of order, because woman worship, all right, Diana was huge in Ephesus, and it had trickled into the churches. So Paul warned Timothy, all right, of what to look out for, what not to allow, and what to stand strict and firm on. Now it says here, one of the striking signs of social dissolution was the decline of the traditional standards of austerity, especially in the case of women. So things got lax. Remember, they were in Babylon, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, so they started to live as the Babylonians, the Assyrians. It says Isaiah denounced the ostentatiousness of the women in Jerusalem, all right, whose passion for material comfort and personal adornment drove their fathers and husbands to amass ill-gotten wealth, all right, pervert justice, and oppress the poor. All right, so to please women, all right, because as Esdras tell you, women are very strong. Women, the concept of a woman as it pertains to a man, all right, when it's out of order, that man can be destroyed. So you have men to appease, the appetites of the women, try to get rich, become demons, pervert justice, and oppress the poor. All right, this was happening, all right, to please the women. Okay, and it says, since the conduct of these women was hastening the downfall of Jerusalem, okay, they would be the first to suffer from its destruction, which would be followed by their utter destitution. See? Stripped of their gorgeous raiment and jewelry, the once pampered ladies of the city would go into exile, barefooted with their heads shorn. The upper class Israelite woman or women, like other Oriental women, Orient means going back to the East, of some position, paid no less careful attention to the coiffure. All right, and when you look up the word coiffure, okay, it deals with their hair. All right, I'll look it up real quick. The word coiffure, okay, it means a person's hairstyle, typically an elaborate one. All right, somebody can put it on the comment board. But we know how our women are into their hair shows. Okay, I had another book, because we used to be into these books heavily when we first came in. All right, but and we still read them from time to time. But it talked about how they were doing hair shows, and it's the same thing that our women do here in Babylon the Great. Okay, it says they paid no less careful attention to their coiffure than she did to her dress and adornment. So they was all into fashion, proud, right? Gathering abroad, talking crap. Okay. It says city ladies, all right, used to bind up their hair, curling and fixing its ends until their coiffure was well set. And today you got those rollers, all right, those hot irons, okay, showing you that this is talking about our people, all right. And this was the kingdom of Judah, okay, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. So the Lord put a curse on Judah, Benjamin, and Levi of their hair, okay. That's why a lot of them struggle in that area. It says, city ladies used to bind up their hair, curling and fixing its ends until the coiffure was well set. Her hair was swept upwards and enclosed in a mitre-shaped headdress, the ends of which hang down over her shoulders. Okay, so our women's hair used to be long. The Southern Kingdom. It says, a similarly formal coiffure is also found on the statues of the goddess Ashtoreth, exacerbated in Palestine. Ultimately, Israel will be compelled to submit to the yoke of the Assyrian oppressor. Okay. This, okay, comparison of the captive's harsh lot to the yoke in which the farm animals worked is commonly used in the Old Testament to depict the enslavement of Israel and the great powers of the ancient world. Isaiah's words here give us a vivid and exact picture of what actually happened in those countries where prisoners of war were set to hard labor. So Jake went into captivity.
And the women were a big part of that. The women were called out amongst, all right, the leadership and the men. So that's balance. This is when you all hear us get on women, you think it's too much. Well, listen to what Isaiah is saying. The scriptures give judgment on wicked women. But as our women were being proud, as a matter of fact, what I did was I typed it in Chat GPT. I first asked, was Isaiah the third chapter speaking to the kingdom of Judah only? And it's basically said, yeah. All right. Pretty much, let's just get here. Who was Isaiah speaking to in Isaiah 3? Isaiah's ministry was to Judah and Jerusalem. Okay. The leaders in Jerusalem. So the immediate target is the southern kingdom, Judah, not the northern kingdom, Israel. All right. Because you got a lot of our people saying, well, why does the northern kingdom get to have long hair and the southern kingdom get to, well, that curse. And this is specifically speaking to the southern kingdom. All right. Just a short answer. All right. By the time Isaiah prophesied, the northern kingdom was already deeply apostate, as we showed you. Pretty much all of the leaders had went off. As you can see, all of these did evil. Jeroboam, all of them did evil. Omri, again, Jehu did good at some point, but he eventually went off. But, at the time of Uzziah, let's see here, pretty much the northern kingdom they were deep, they were knee deep in idol worship. The Lord was like, just leave them alone. And eventually, at the time of Hosea, they left, all right, the Assyrian captivity and came over to the Americas. Synonymously over here with the kings of Judah, as we went into the Babylonian captivity, it was mixed, but Josiah was the last that did good. And the rest of these were set up on the throne of David by the heathen and were sellouts. Now, Isaiah 3 is directed against the southern kingdom, Judah and Jerusalem, not both kingdoms. This prophecy came before the northern kingdom's fall to Assyria, during that time when Isaiah was warning Judah about the same sin that destroyed their northern brothers. But I asked, what were the women doing in that time that made the Lord so angry? And then we'll get a few others and we'll close it out. Isaiah 3:16 through 26 focuses on the women of Jerusalem. The Lord was angry not at just the men, but also the women, because of their conduct, reflection of the same pride, vanity, and worldliness. Okay, and we're seeing the same thing today. What were women doing? The daughters of Zion were haughty, walking with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes. The scriptures say you can know a whore by her eyelids. Them big ass eyelashes. It says haughtiness, pride. They carried themselves arrogantly as though above others. Seduction, wanton eyes, flirtatious look, seductive glances. As a matter of fact, let's get that. I believe it's in, I believe it's in the Apocrypha. Yep, the whoredom of a woman may be known in her haughty looks and eyelids. Wow. Man. Verse 6, but grief of heart and sorrow is a woman that is jealous over another woman. That is hell. Okay. A scourge of the tongue which communicated with all. She'll say anything. An evil wife is a yoke shaken to and fro, and he that have hold of her is as though he held a scorpion. A drunken woman and a gatherer abroad cause it great anger, and she will not cover her own shame. Shameless. They get drunk, say anything, do anything, get on social media talking all kind of, shit. Just, if thy daughter, the whoredom of a woman may be known in her haughty looks and her eyelids. If thy daughter be shameless, keep her in straitly, lest she abuse herself through overmuch liberty. And see, that's what happened back in Isaiah, the 3rd chapter. And that's what's happening here in Babylon. Okay. That's why the thought of order, all right, drives them crazy. Well, order is coming back. You're not going to be walking around like this in the kingdom. You're going to be in complete order, and you're going to love it. You're going to be happy. Okay. But this age is going to be met with some great destruction. All right. Horrible is the end of the unrighteous generation. Vanity in appearance, mincing, deliberate, showy walk, switching, showing your ass, your cleavage, showy luxury. They adorn themselves with costly jewelry that made sound twinkling with their feet. Okay, verses 18 through 23 lists dozens of ornaments, anklets, chains, bracelet, rings, perfume bottles, headdress, fancy bottles, fancy clothes. This paints a picture of women obsessed with fashion, beauty, and outward show, while inwardly they were corrupt. Why was God angry? Pride and arrogance. Their beauty and wealth gave them a false sense of superiority. See, that happened in the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and it's happening here, to where the Lord brought a judgment. And that's where Isaiah, the 4th chapter, comes, because basically that same judgment is coming here today. Okay? Luxury in the face of national judgment. While the nation faced decline, they glorified in wealth and show, calling niggas broke, saying they don't want this. Okay? They not going to deal with that. They want a high value man. They want a man that make, the 400K. Okay. All right. Then 4 baby daddy's lady, a tattoo, a bullet hole. Right. A lost job later, you looking at bottom shelf Brad, the same guy you clowned and made mockery of, man. He doing curls, watching Kevin Samuels. And he don't want nothing to do with your ass. Misplaced values, outward adornment mattered more than inward righteousness. Compare 1 Peter 3, 3 through 4. Let's get that. 1 Peter 3. First Peter 3, whose adorning, let it not be outward adorning of plaiting of the hair and wearing of gold and putting on apparel. All right. But let it be the hitting man of the heart, in which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. For after this manner in old time, holy women also who trusted in God adorned themselves, being in subjection to their own husbands. All right. Righteous men, subjection under the rule. Right. And to hear that in these days, all right, with all of the freedom you've been granted, it makes you cringe. You're looking at this video now, mad, slobbing, like a pit bull looking at the screen, looking at your husband, trying to make sure he ain't smiling. Well, the day is going to come where you're going to be trodden down like the mire of the streets, all you proud ass women, man. Right. And again, I don't like to do too much talking about women and women this, women that. I get it, but prophecy and these things coming to pass are going to speak for themselves. Right. And we know a lot of our women, some of our women are going to be delivered, but it's going to come with a great humbling, man. Okay. And then we'll link it all into his dream. God's judgment on them. Perfume turned to stink, sash turned to rope, fine hair turned to baldness, rich clothes to sackcloth, beauty to branding mark of shame. This is why God is stripping away everything they trusted in. All right. In summary, the women of Judah in Isaiah 3 angered the Lord by their haughtiness, vanity, and seductive behavior, and obsession with luxury and outward beauty. Look at these podcasts. Their pride reflected the same corruption in the nation's men, showing that Judah's society as a whole had turned from humility before God and self-glorification. And this don't mean that a woman of the southern kingdom can't have, decent hair, but we know the majority of you struggle. All right. But the Lord, he judged our women. He judged, all right, the different tribes in a different way. But this chapter, I just wanted to go into that to show you. All right. And then I asked, did Isaiah 4:1 happen at this time, or is it a future prophecy? All right. Because it's the very next chapter after he showed that a judgment was coming on them. The men were going to die. The women were going to be judged, and they're going to be left out to dry. All right. So it says Isaiah had just prophesied that Judah's men of war, leaders, and mighty men would fall. All right. Isaiah 3:25 through 26. Thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty men in the war. That left Jerusalem desolate, with many women widowed or unmarried. Historically, this came to pass in waves: the Assyrian invasions, Babylonian invasions. So yes, it began to happen in Isaiah's own time, especially through war. Is it also a future prophecy? Yes, the phrase "in that day" in Isaiah often points towards a day of the Lord, a prophetic time of judgment and a restoration that layers fulfillment. Okay. So, that happened back then, but in a long-term fulfillment, it's a picture of the end times when judgment will again remove multitudes and women will seek covering of a man's name. Okay. Let's see here. So when you get it, all right, because there's going to be a judgment. We read in the book of Second Esdras, right, that many women would be left. All right, verse 33, the virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The men shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. In the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. So this is going to leave many women out to dry. Okay. And pretty much a lot of you are going to be rejected, but this is going to be the mindset. As you can see, a remnant prepared. And see, the way the Lord is going to deliver the remnant. All right. This is 1 Timothy 2:14. Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. Notwithstanding, she shall be saved in childbearing if they continue in the faith and charity and holiness with sobriety. So a lot of our women are going to be saved in childbearing. Now, I remember a few brothers were saying, if you don't have a child, you ain't gonna be saved. That's not true. All right. The Lord can save, and he can open the womb of a woman, but then you have certain women who aren't able to have children, on this side, or ultimately, or of an age where they no longer, where the Lord can deliver his elect however he sees fit. Okay. But this will be the case for many of our women. You will be saved through childbearing. And Jeremiah 31 says what? All right, what is this chapter dealing with? Okay, the remnant of Israel being delivered. Jeremiah 31:7. For thus saith the Lord, sing with gladness for Jacob, and shout out among the chief of the nations. Publish ye, praise ye, and say, O Yahweh, save thy people, the remnant of Israel. Behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the coast of the earth, and with them the blind and the lame and the woman with child and her that travaileth with child together. A great company shall return thither. All right. So there's going to be women with children. There are going to be women having children, and they're going to be delivered, man. And how the Lord is going to do that, we're going to have to see. But it's prophesied right here that the remnant will be accompanied by a woman with child and her that travaileth with child together. A great company is going to return. Okay. What does Isaiah 43 say? Right? Isaiah 43 and 5. Fear not, for I am with thee. I will bring thy seed from the east and gather thee from the west. I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Okay, and many of the daughters are going to be delivered through childbearing and being paired with the men, however the Lord sees fit. We can't tell you when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, how it's going to look, how we going to be clean, how, I don't know. But this is a prophecy of the Lord. Isaiah 4:1. In that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread. You ain't got to buy me no food. And this is more of a mindset, because as society collapses, we know most people won't have things, and the Lord is going to provide. But it's a mindset, the mindset of comfort and what can you do for me, and You know, you got to take me here, and you got to have this, you got to have that. All of that is going to drop. We will eat our own bread. You ain't got to take me, all right, to a 5-star restaurant. You ain't got to buy me this and buy me that. We get our own. We worry about our own food and apparel and all that. We ain't worried about that. We ain't looking at a man solely on what he can do for us. We're looking at a man for his value in Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, which those are the true high value men. And as this society collapses and this system becomes less reliable, all women are going to be forced. Many of them are going to be destroyed, but the Lord, through humbling, is going to allow some of them to be delivered. A lot of them are going to be rejected. Okay? Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. Now, Bishop Nathaniel says this is in the kingdom. Why would our woman have reproach in the kingdom? Why would they need their reproach taken away in the kingdom? No, that's going to happen on this side. Our women are going to be all righteous in the kingdom of heaven. They won't have any reproach. Let's look up the word reproach. So in the kingdom of heaven, women are going to have reproach because he's ashamed to tell his woman there's going to come a day that she's going to have to share him. Well, we ain't ashamed to tell you women that. And for you who got a problem with it and think that we're just a bunch of, guys using the Bible to fulfill our own lust, well, the Lord will deal with you in that day. He going to deal with you, man. Even before that day. A lot of you ain't going to even make it to that day because of your pride, because you think you own the man. No, we belong to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, and he's going to do what he sees fit to do with us. All right? Charapa. Reproach, scorn, taunt. To not have a man in the ancient world, you were taunted. To not have children. Reproach, shame, disgrace. See that? Rebuke. Disgrace. So the root word, charap, okay? Taunt, So to take away that reproach and taunt, which a lot of women are going to be confounded at that time. The scriptures say, let's get Micah 7. Micah 7 and 10. Then she that is my enemy shall see it, and shame shall cover her, which said unto me, where is the Lord thy God? Okay, the heathen as well. All right, but women are going to be in that. All right. My eyes shall behold her, and now shall she be trodden down as the mire in the street. So there's going to be a lot of women put to shame in that time. Right?
And what it was, like, it came to me. Those women were actually the mothers to the children that were the children of the men that had died in the first dream. They were all of the children were born out of wedlock. Every last one of them were born out of wedlock. And the women were running around trying to find men that would marry them. They were even offering themselves in ways that they probably normally wouldn't do. They were
selling their bodies.
Hear so many different voices. I hear so many different arguments, so many different disagreements, and so many different denials. And the women were running to the men, and they were telling the men, "Marry me. I don't care what I have to do." And some of the women even said, "I'll be your seventh wife. I'll be your seventh wife. I don't care. I don't care if I'm the seventh one." And so the men were listening, and some of the men would choose as many women as they could. Some of the men chose none of them. A lot of them chose none of those women. And what they were saying was, "I can't help you. I can't afford you. I don't want that baby. I don't want to raise another man's baby. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Why didn't you want me when I wanted you? What's going on now? No, I don't need that." But one of the statements stuck out to me.
And that, the time of Moses, when they took down the Midianites, I believe, he said, kill all of the women who have known men, but the women who haven't dealt with any man, basically the virgins, keep them for yourselves, So it's going to be a very, very interesting time, man.
One statement said, "I don't want to raise that child because I don't know anything about his father." If you know anything about the connection between young boys and their fathers, you kind of understand how severe this is. The millennial men were telling the women, "I don't want what their father has to come into my household." And so they would.
So men are going to be operating in wisdom in that day. It's not going to be based on, damn, she fine, and oh my God, is nah. It's going to be based upon the Lord putting the Spirit upon men. It ain't going to be like now. Okay, in this world, where you tuck your shirt in and spray on all this damn cologne, and you looking at a woman and you think she's looking at you. You walk up to her and get your ass denied. Or you get her number and she ghosts you, all of them days are going to be gone, Jack. Okay. Isaiah 4:1 is going to be centered around women in dire straits and dire need of men of the Lord. Because the scriptures say, then shall it be known who is my chosen. Let's see here. Verse 71, 2nd Esdras 16:71. Then shall they be like madmen, sparing none, but spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as gold in the fire. Hear, O ye my beloved, saith the Lord, behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same. So then it's going to be made manifest who are the chosen of who the Lord is dealing with during that time. And as everybody is catching hell, women are going to see who the winning team is. And they're going to try to jump ship. So they're going to say, let us be called by your name to take away our reproach, to be a covering. Okay? So I just wanted to get into that. Check out the elders video. Hopefully I will edify. Shalom.